Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I'm very, very grateful to have one of the few men I end up having the pleasure of inviting on my podcast. His name is Seth Katz. Welcome, Seth.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Lyn.
You're very welcome. And Seth is a life coach, but most importantly of all, he is somebody that's overcome, a massive trauma in his life. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how you can heal from abuse and the journey that's involved in doing that. So, Seth, thank you so much for being vulnerable, especially I know it can be even harder, I know, for guys because they're not used to usually being encouraged to share their emotions, or if they are encouraged, then they're usually a bit reluctant because, it can be for a man quite often perceived as a form of weakness, can't it?
Yes, it can. It can. But I think the main thing is that nowadays you get men talking more and sharing their experiences more, but plus also as well sharing their vulnerable side as well, seeing their vulnerable side as well. It's quite healthy to express and to show that side really, because then you can start to resonate with other men as well too. So I would definitely see it as being a positive, definitely.
Massively so. And on the back of doing things like this, I think you're doing a great service to other men who may be sort of in a position where they're afraid or reluctant to share, because they've been educated or parented to feel like it might be a sign of weakness to actually get the help and open up more. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start off with, if you don't mind, sharing with our audience your personal story. What happened to you?
Sure. So my story started probably when I was about like 6 or 7, really. We used to go over to a relative's house. So this was on my mum's side. It was her cousin. She had, so her kids were my second cousins almost. And we'd go over quite a few times. Nothing untowards. I was young, carefree, whatever, and it was nice. We'd go over, I don't know, like once a month, sometimes maybe every couple of weeks. Nice family atmosphere. Uncles, aunts, everybody there. And there's one particular day. Went up to my cousin's room, and then that's when he kind of told me to come towards him, and then he then proceeded to grope me, then pull my trousers down, and then I said no, and it kind of stopped. That was the first time, so I've never really said nothing. He said, "Oh, make sure you don't tell anyone anything," but I was quite startled by it. And then there was a time when the actual abuse happened. I remember clearly because it was the summer holidays. So you stay at home summer holidays. My mum worked nights, my father worked shift work, so they were pretty tired during the day. So my mum and arranged for my cousin to come over. He came over. I remember that the day vividly. Was a lovely day. She was asleep upstairs, and then that's when he abused me.
How old was your cousin at this? So I'm assuming it's not like a couple of children sort of,
no.
Playing and just being curious.
No, he was probably at least about another 10 years older than me. So if I was 6 or 7, he would have been about 16, 17 by then. And then this happened probably like twice. Second time that happened, well, the first time it happened, I was not really sure what to think. I wasn't really coherent. I guess at those times, as a child, your emotions are what's going on type thing. There wasn't any crying. There was a bit of panic because I was thinking if my mum comes down, what's going to happen? But there wasn't any type of, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have done this to me type thing. And then, the second time it happened, it was, we went over to their house. He kind of called me upstairs because he had lots of toys and games and stuff. So I was quite into toys, games, stuff like that. So I'd come up there, and he said, "Oh, come and sit down." And then it happened again, and then it was a case of I wasn't sure what to think. And he just said, "I'll make sure that you don't tell anyone." And I was like, "Oh, fine, okay." And then I lived with that for years. But then I guess in my school, when I used to go to school and when I used to go to college, I found I was very kind of, people would say I was very disruptive. I would not being able to focus, very kind of up and down. But then working through life now and then, when I was like 15, 16, left home, started to experience drugs, started to experience like lots of different sexual experiences. Lot of just never settled my schoolwork. Like I left school at 15 with no qualifications, no GCSEs, and then I guess was just always just stumbling through life. Couldn't understand stuff, but I would always have the experience at the back of my head because I knew it was wrong, but I never thought it would have an effect on me as what it had.
Yeah.
And then kind of roll forward into like 2000, maybe 99, 2000. One day I was looking at a program, Kilroy. These are for the older folks who remember Breakfast TV.
And for those people who are listening from abroad, Kilroy is like a talk show type program, yes. a bit like Oprah and
yes.
Other sort of talk show type programs. Yeah,
that's right. And then Kilroy, the particular topic of that day was men who were sexually abused, and I sat down and watched it. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I tell you, Lyn, when I looked at the program, heard some of the stuff that some of these men were doing, the behaviors, I could connect to every which way, from relationship issues to addiction to whatever it was. I could relate. And it wasn't that I never wanted to relate. I was like, oh, because I hear someone talk and then they'll just hit a topic and like, yeah, that happens to me and that happens to me sometimes. And I'm like, so then I kind of stopped and I thought, maybe this is having a greater effect on me than what it is, what I'm actually thinking. Because I was thinking, oh no, it's something that happened. It's past now. It's long gone. But I had no clue. And then I sat there. Yeah.
It's certainly a very traumatizing experience. And, I know from my own personal experience, which I've already shared on previous podcast episodes for those listeners interested in my own story, that, certainly you don't realize, do you, the impact it has on your life, but actually, it's a big trauma, and you're more or less, looking for ways to, I suppose, numb that internal pain, but you're not realizing that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think here's this is the best way to explain abuse or to explain any kind of trauma. If you think about a car, right? You drive a car is in immaculate condition. Yeah. You meet someone who abuses you or is a perpetrator or whatever. And if you think, for every time they do something to you, they have a hammer in their hand, right? So if they degrade you, or if it's rape, if it's abuse, if you think of that person hitting that car with a hammer, breaking their windows, busting their light out, leaving dents, leaving marks, disfiguring the car, destroying the car. And what we do is, when we have a car accident, normally, what do? We take it into the repair shop, we get it fixed, back out as normal. What we do with abuse and what we do with these domestic experiences or violent or traumatic experiences is we carry them. We think, okay, because it's this, then it should be all right. But yet subconsciously, we're walking around with dents and marks and holes and broken glass and everything like that, to be able to function in a normal way.
Yes.
And it's not until somebody points out, hey, your body or your like exterior, like talking figuratively, as a car, is damaged. Like, really, is it? Oh, no, it's not. And then someone points it out, or you start seeing things like the windows don't work, or the indicators don't work, or the car's not starting correctly. Then you think there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Then is when you start taking it back, and then you're thinking, oh, maybe this could be the effect of.
So what sort of behaviours, did you realise on the back of watching that? How old were you when you watched that sort of Kilroy talk show program?
I think I was 24.
So
24.
Quite a long time after the actual abuse, then, that you
Yes.
listened to that program and had these realizations that, I can relate to all the, what these guys are sharing.
Yeah.
So what did you sort of, I suppose, recognize about your own behaviors that you was engaging in that weren't obviously healthy behaviors or healthy thoughts, that you recognize were probably as a result of that trauma you'd been through?
Okay, so probably I can list about 5. So the first one would be needing or requiring external validation. So from relationships. So meet someone, go out with them, have a relationship with them, and then just have the need for them to externally validate me because I felt so low myself. The one good thing that I did, like you, I was quite sporty. So I know you did your swimming stuff. I ran track. So I ran like track and field. I did stuff for the county, the south of England, and that was almost my saving space, really, as a kind of because I had so much anxiety dealing with work. So I couldn't hold jobs down. I'd start jobs perfectly, lose jobs in about a year. Normally the anxieties and stuff would raise its head in about a year, feeling really pressurized with stuff, couldn't focus. My attention to detail was atrocious. Like the smallest things, just attention to detail was bad. Then the whole thing of wanting to use drugs, experimenting, and also the actual sexual experiences as well, in terms of trying to get an excess. Like my thing was excess. It wasn't the fact of I was trying to hurt anybody. It just felt good. It was like more. It's more.
Was that from a self-masturbation or multiple relationships or lots of sex in one relationship? How did that manifest itself?
Yeah, multiple relationships. Oh man, multiple, from having like 6 so-called girlfriends come over to my house in a day and just have sex with them all in a day, like each one, to having, like, going out to just meet people and just be around people. I just thought that this is great for me. When I look back now, I feel horrified by it, because I just but the thing is, I've never understood the value of myself. I had no self-esteem. I had self-confidence, but no self-esteem, no value, no worth. And then I put myself in these situations and not really understand or not realize, like, why am I doing that? There was no off switch. I guess that's the only thing that you can equate it to. There was no way of stopping. I found it hard to stop something. I had no way of actually saying, okay, I don't want to see this person. Like, oh no, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to have this. I've got to try that.
I think for a lot of us, you know, when we don't actually realise at the time we're suffering with lack of self-esteem and self-worth, but we equate, don't we, that sex equals love. And by getting lots of sex, then we're getting lots of love, aren't we? And that makes us temporarily, for a very short period of time, feel better in the moment.
Exactly. And I've also, as well, you don't actually, like, you're taking, like I'm a genuinely empathetic person, right? But I wouldn't take into consideration that much the other person's feelings. I would like, oh yeah, okay, and kind of not kind of blow them off, but more so be thinking about myself, really. But then not to really hurt them, but then I just felt that having so much was really good for me, and really I felt really proud of it then. And then when I was going through those things, there were lows as well. There were lows. There was a lot of depression. There was a lot of kind of up and down stuff. There was a lot of be committed, like self-sabotaging as well. Very heavily self-sabotaging. Meet someone who would care for me and love me and all that, and then 6 months later, nah. But knowing my head, this person's a good person. My heart, yes, and my emotion, no. It's the weirdest thing ever. It's like knowing a person's a good person, knowing you want to stay with them, but you just can't. And it's like, that was a repetitive thing, like a cycle. And then when, I guess, the thing that kind of bugged me out more was the work situation, because I could always see it coming. I was always like preempting the build up. Like, I knew I would start a job, no problem. 6 months, a year. And then after a year, it's like, I don't know if I got complacent or lost confidence or whatever it is. I'll just go from being a good worker to getting sacked or being put on probation, or not on probation, being on when they give you your first, like a
written warning or a verbal warning.
That's it. Yes, a warning, verbal warning. I'm like, what's going on? And then but the thing is, if you think back then to the early 2000s and stuff, Facebook wasn't really there. The internet was just in its infancy, so it's not what it was now. So in terms of trying to find help, you couldn't really find help, and if you think about it, that was before the Me Too movement. Not too many people were talking about this. Was before what's his name, Jimmy Savile, before all this big stuff around, historical abuse and stuff came out.
And just for the benefit of the audiences abroad, Jimmy Savile was a well-known DJ in the UK who was a prolific paedophile, which only got discovered decades later, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I guess that's also showing my age as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's that was before that. And so trying to have that conversation about my experiences, where do you start? Where do you go? How do you have it? With who and who? there were just no starting point really. And I guess that kind of then that was at the start of my journey then, like back that day. And then you come across certain people, certain friends, that would, in conversations, they'll say, yeah, this happened to me, blah blah blah, we'll talk about it. And it's like, oh, okay. But then I was finding a lot more people than I'd bargained for had experienced, like, DV or something, or more some type of traumatic experiences as children. So I was really surprised by this. And then kind of trundled through life, trundled through jobs, still had all these toxic behaviors because I still tried to maintain a normal life, but these were like my nightmares almost. They was always coming back and haunting me. And then I found a partner back in probably about 2003, 2004, had a son, got married, and then I guess I think having my son mentally settled me in a way, but then I still had these anxieties, still had these issues. But the person that I met wasn't really supportive like that. They wasn't really encouraging. I think they had their own issues too. There's lots of arguments, lots of manipulation towards me because I thought that this was it. I said, I only want to get married once. I said, I never want to get married again, like 2 and 3 times. And then I think coupled in with my anxieties, I had so much anger, going around with bags of anger. I'll be angry for like over something stupid. Like if the bin wasn't closed, I'll be angry about it for like a day. If something never went right, I'll be angry for like not talk for like 2 weeks. But internally, I'm going like, what is wrong with me? There's something wrong. And then kind of trying to search for more answers, reading books. And then probably about 4 years ago, a friend of mine who I used to work with, well, now we work together now, she actually recommended, because she had suffered domestic violence, and she said, you know what, Seth, you should really look at working with a therapist that has PTSD. I'm like, PTSD? That's for like people who go to war and come back like shaking and stuff. Yeah.
Again, for the benefit of the audience, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, doesn't it?
Disorder, yes, yeah. And I said, I don't need to go to see a therapist. I said, you're crazy. She said, you'll be surprised. So, man, I went to that therapist, and I tell you, Lyn, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. So we talked about my abuse. We talked about my life as a child. We did some like therapy stuff as well, borderline in the lines of like just visualization, being a child stuff, and also the something called EFT, which is tapping, where you've got like certain points of your body where you tap, which actually help you to, because what happens with trauma and we keep in our bodies is, if you think about it, those people who are probably listening now would be able to resonate. If you think that your favorite, how do you feel when you talk about your favorite football team? It brings about emotion, it brings about joy, it brings about something. But you have what we do, we connect emotions to events. Yes. And what happened is, with the therapy I received, I was able to separate my emotion from the event. So that's by tapping in therapy. And I tell you, Lyn, when I got home, like first of all, there was a big hoo-ha about how much I have to pay, because I was like, oh, I have to pay like, I think it was about like 700 or 800 quid for like 10 sessions. Yeah. And I said, I said, I'm not paying that. I said, this is a load of nonsense. I said, who pays this money to go and what? Well, don't forget, you think you're going to sit on a couch, you're going to talk to someone, and it's how you see it in the films, right? But no, it was different. It was a nice atmosphere, very calm, and
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of, again, for the benefit of the audience, the tapping technique is EFT that you referred to is for emotional freedom technique, isn't it? It's that you
very good.
And, I'm assuming you found that a really effective therapy to use.
Brilliant. There are different types, because I know that there's one with writing, which is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and which is writing, and also EFT, which is a kind of it really depends on the person, really. But I know for me, EFT worked a charm. So after that particular first session, I got home, and it's like it felt like someone switched the off button. Like I couldn't talk. Like I tried, but I couldn't talk for about a week, almost a week. I was just humming and gesticulating and pointing at things. And then when my partner asked me, "Oh, Seth, are you all right?" Or just don't want to be around people.
I think generally that's the difference between the masculine and the feminine, energies, regardless of what body you're in. If you're strongly, a masculine energy, in other words, usually that pertains to men in general, especially in opposite sex relationships, but not always the case, and the opposite when it comes to women. But I think generally the difference between how men and women sort of process stuff is that women like to speak, whereas men go inwards and they have to process it by themselves. Whereas
Correct,
we like to share,
You like to share, exactly. That's very true, because it's so funny, because when I met my current wife now, she had just come from a DV relationship, and she was going through CBT, and she will talk incessantly about what they did, what happened, and I'll ask questions. And I was really interested in it, because I was interested in the whole psychology of like how the brain works, what happens, how you feel, etc. But for me, it was like, I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to be around the kids. I don't want to be at home. Leave me alone. Let me figure this out, because I was getting a bit worried. I was like, what's going on with me? I don't know what's going on. But like when you retrace my steps now, and actually knowing what I know now, it's like my brain was actually shutting down and remapping itself and creating new neural pathways in terms of learning and dealing with stuff. And so I went back to the therapist, and I told her I couldn't talk. She laughed. She was like, "Yeah, it's fine." I said, "Really?"
Yeah.
I said, "You sure?" But I like talking. She said, "Yeah, you'll be fine." So I went back. That's the second time we did the therapy. I couldn't talk again, but it wasn't so bad. I probably couldn't talk for like 5 days. And then I found that each time I kept on going, what was happening to me with the whole talking stuff and not wanting to be around people was becoming less and less.
Yeah.
So but it worked. It worked really well. And I was actually surprised at how much of a change it made to me. I was more on point. And then I started kind of talking and working with a lot of women and men, just talking, just general stuff about relationships and what they go through and experiences and abuse and stuff like that. And I'll be talking about it incessantly anytime, because I just found it interesting. I found it so interesting that an experience that you had or have can have so much impact in your life, your whole life, and in different ways, and how you process different things, and the who's and the why's and the what's. And really, I just took a real passion to, wasn't the whole life coaching thing, but the psychology, like behavioral behavioral stuff, neural pathways and things like that. I just had so much of a interest. And then one of my friends kind of reached out to me, and she was like, oh, because I hadn't spoken to her in years. So I was like, how are you? She said, oh, I've suffered domestic violence. And I'm like, what? So she was like, I'm starting a Facebook group. I'm looking to start my own company. Would you like to come on board? And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. I said, what do I have to do? So she said, you have to get yourself certified and, just generally be there as the advocate, really, as standing testimony for, first of all, someone who can recover from a childhood abuse. Secondly, someone who is, well, I'm a big advocate now of like, domestic violence awareness. In my main job, I talk about it every day, all day.
And let's be clear there, men can be, the victims of domestic violence the same as women, can't they?
Yeah, they can. And it's actually startling. I think men has got the 1 in 6, women 1 in 4. But the many men that have shared with me through my experiences have come to me and shared with me and told me what they've experienced and built a connection, built rapport, started talking about deeper things that can actually happen. So it's been actually really, it's part of my, that's why I call this the journey. It's been part of my healing journey for me to help people add some value to myself, because I thought, like, when I first started learning about psychology and how the brain works, like, I went to my manager and I was like, what side of the brain do you think you use more? I'm like, she was like, what? I was like, well, do you know that what the left side and the right side is for? And it started explaining what it's for. And then, do you know about this? And do you know about that? And she was like, well, you've been studying a lot, haven't you? I said, yeah, because I enjoy it so much. And then actually the light bulb switched on. And because all the years I thought I was silly, I thought I was stupid, I thought I don't deserve to have a job because I'm not clever enough. I used to compare myself to others. I used to beat myself up. I'm like, what happened if I made a potion where it can create a brain and I can drink it and I can have an extra brain to know all these things? And I was just ruminate about crazy stuff, because you want to excel and your potential so much. But now, since learning this whole stuff about psychology, it's like, and how much I know and how much I take in and how much I actually use is my value now. Is I know where my value is now. I don't have to validate.
Excellent. Love it, Seth. And on that note, what is your best contact information for anybody who's interested in this and, can see and obviously hear your experience and know your value in terms of wanting to reach out and contact you? Sure.
So the two best ways is the first one is on Facebook, just Seth Katz. And if you also want to contact me directly through our business, it's selfloveafterabuse.com. And that's all one word. That's it.
selfloveafterabuse.com.
Yes.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Seth, for being vulnerable enough and courageous enough to share your story, and all its ups and downs. And it's great to know that you found your way through and you can give people hope and inspiration for the future and know that they can overcome this.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lyn, and it's much appreciated. Much appreciated. Thank you.
And on that note, it just leaves me to say, listeners, true love starts with opening our hearts. Until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. self-esteem-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.